Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Neurodiverse Music Classroom, using strengths of special learners and all students in blended learning environments. My name is Brian Wagner-Yeung, and I am the NYSMA, the New York State School Music Association Special Learners Chair. In addition to that, I am a special education music teacher for the New York City Department of Education. Primarily, I work with students who are on the autism spectrum and students who have cognitive disabilities. In addition to that, I am a music education consultant. Our focus for today is what is neurodiversity and how can it support all students in musical environments? What is positive niche construction and how can it lead to stronger engagement from all types of learners? And how can neurodiversity be implemented both for students who are learning in person and remotely? So for this session, I do want to take into account that I know some of our students are learning in school buildings and some of our students are learning remotely. So we will kind of bring that up a little bit just because that is the current state of affairs for our students right now. So what is neurodiversity? This may be a term that we may not be familiar with. Just looking at that, obviously we see two words in that, neuro and diversity. Neuro referring to our brain and diversity representing diversity or differences. Currently, there is a big focus on intersectionality in school culture and climate right now. Fortunately, here at Able Assembly, intersectionality is one of the huge themes of this year's sessions. When we're talking about intersectionality, this talks about race, culture, class, gender, age, sexual orientations, recognizing and celebrating the differences that we have in our classrooms. One of the things that we definitely want to do and add into this discussion is the incorporation of brain diversity. Brain diversity is just as important as any of these, and we should be including this in the school environment as well. We should be recognizing and celebrating that all of our students' brains are different, just as all of our brains are different. And all of our students and individuals, since they have different brains, that means they engage in different ways. So you're going to be hearing this a lot. We should be celebrating our students' different diversities, including their brain diversity. So one of the key focuses of neurodiversity is strength awareness. This is what we call the strength awareness model. All of us have strengths. A lot of the times when we're looking at our students, especially our students with disabilities, oftentimes we see that disability and yes, it happens, but really we want to take a step back and really see them as people, see them as humans and really see what are their strengths because all of our students have strengths. Sometimes it just takes us time to take a step back and really learn to see our students and see what engages them, what motivates them. These are going back to the four basic learning modalities: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile. All of our students have the opportunity to find success when we're focusing on their strengths and building that into the classroom setting. And that's why it says here, all of our students can. We really want to shape the environment, our school environment, based on the strengths of our students, rather than making our students form into the school environment. It's all about focusing everything on their individual strengths. When we're talking about neurodiversity, we're also talking about what's called positive niche construction. This is a differentiated environment for all types of brains. And this is a concept that's kind of coming from Thomas Armstrong and originally connects to niche construction found in human evolution and biology. So when we're talking about neurodiversity, in the neurodiversity model, there is no normal brain sitting in a vat somewhere at the Smithsonian or National Institute of Health to which all brains must be compared. Instead, there are a wide diversity of brains populating this world. The neurodiversity inspired educator will have a deep respect for each child's unique brain and seek to create the best differentiated learning environment within which it can strive. So one of the reasons I included this quote, what I find most powerful is that Thomas Armstrong says, there is no normal brain. There's no brain, there's no master brain that we're all being compared to. Everyone's brain is different and everyone's brain works in a different way and each of us has our strengths. And that's when we're talking about positive niche construction. We want to create those different types of niches in our classroom because we want to focus on those strengths. We want to give them those opportunities to find success. So there's 7 different areas that Thomas Armstrong mentions when it comes to neurodiversity in positive niche construction. These include strength awareness, positive role models, assistive technologies and universal design for learning, strength-based learning strategies, human resources, positive career aspirations, and lastly, environmental modifications. So what we're going to do for the remainder of the time is talk about what do each of these 7 areas look like in the music classroom. And we're going to really mostly going to be focusing on in person, but let's really think about what about our students who are learning remotely, because especially next school year, we don't know what's going to happen. And some of our students may still continue learning remotely. So we want to find these strategies to help incorporate neurodiversity for our remote learners as well. So strength awareness is the core of neurodiversity. All of our students have individual strengths, abilities, and possibilities. All of our students also have their own interests, ideas, and individual motivations. Some of our students are interested in different things. Some students only want to listen to pop music. I have students who only want to listen to JoJo Siwa right now, and we're listening to something else, and they're like, I don't want to listen to that. I'm interested in this. I have some other students who are listening to music from their own cultures at home. We want to incorporate that as much as possible. We want our students to feel comfortable coming into the music classroom. We want them to understand that their cultures are valued in our classroom. When our students understand that their cultures, their interests, they're going to be more comfortable taking risks going forward. And that's going to allow our students to also step outside of their comfort zone. But mostly it's the role of us, the teacher, to find out what their individual strengths, interests, and ideas are for our students so we can implement them into the classroom. So some of our students may be strong singers, so finding them as many opportunities to sing as possible. Some of our students are maybe nonverbal, but maybe really strong at using technology. So if they're learning remotely, finding that technology for them to incorporate to be able to engage and showcase what they're learning. Some of our students may be highly organized, so finding ways to have that organization in their classroom. So for example, you may be working with a student who may be on the autism spectrum, who may have memory where they remember dates and facts that none of us will remember. So let them be in charge of making a log or a calendar that's on the wall of all the composers or all the different musics and genres we're learning throughout the year, and creating a map and a timeline. Let them use their strengths to showcase and shine in the classroom. Another area is positive role models. All of our students, not just our students with disabilities, all of our students are motivated by role models. When we're talking about role models, these could be us, their teachers. It could be their classmates. Our students are sometimes motivated by their peers. It could be family members. It could even be celebrities. We want to create opportunities for our students to have as many positive role models as possible. Oftentimes, our students learn and showcase things based on what they're seeing other role models doing. So we want to provide them with positive role models. When we're talking about our students with disabilities also, one of the things I find important is we also want our students with disabilities to see positive role models who have a disability themselves. Let them see people with disabilities who are still able to find success, were able to shine, were able to work through their disabilities. Let them see that they're not alone. Let them see that they can be successful too. Sometimes when they're hearing it from us, their teachers, we may be doing the best that we can, but they may not be connecting as deep as we want them to because they may not see themselves in us. Let them see themselves with other people. For example, Stevie Wonder, he's blind, he's a famous musician. Let them see that he was able to find success. Let them see that. Another area is incorporating assistive technology and universal design of learning, AT or UDL. Assistive technology refers to a number of accommodations and adaptations which enable individuals with disabilities to function more independently. AT includes any type of technology that provides students with disabilities greater access to the general education curriculum and increases the potential to master academic content, interact with others, and enforce functional independence and quality of life. When we're talking about assistive technology, we're not talking about electronics. Assistive technology is any type of anything, accommodation or adaptation that we're giving them to allow them to have greater access. So when we're talking about this, for example, well, using technology, but we might be using computer technology. Alternative keyboards. There are keyboards out there that might shape around our actual hands for some of our students who may not be able to type the different letters on a keyboard. Audio readers. Some of our students are not solid readers, so use technology to allow them to use that. Text to speak function. I've used this before with my students. You can select text on a computer or even on an iPad, hit a button, and the device will read the text back to you. So they have the opportunity to hear or see what's happening in the text, even if they're not able to read the words. Interactive whiteboards. So it's kind of like a smartboard, but allowing them to actually use their hands to physically manipulate. Communication supports. A lot of times in special education classrooms, you might see students using AAC, augmentative and alternative communication. Many of our students who are nonverbal may use iPads to communicate. There's multiple types of programs out there that our students are using on their iPads. Go Talks are another device that some of our students may use. Some of them have 4 blocks, some of them have more than that. Our student would hit a picture that's on their Go Talk and it would repeat a word out for them. So that's allowing them to communicate. PEC symbols, which are actual pictures that our students are using to communicate. But in addition to that, basic adapted materials such as pencil grippers, which you'll see in the picture right there, that's an example of assistive technology. Adapted scissors. So some of our students may not be able to physically manipulate a scissor. They have adapted scissors to allow them to use that. And common assistive technology that many of our students use in their day-to-day lives, wheelchairs, glasses, and hearing aids. For us as music educator, there's actually a lot of assistive music instruments that are out there. There are assistive straps that our students can use when holding a drumstick, mallet, or bow. I've even created my own straps just using Velcro and string just for our students to grasp. There are devices that are out there to hold instruments higher for students to reach. So if you have some students who may be in a wheelchair, there are devices that can hold an instrument up so they can reach it. There's technology that's out there that allows students to actually make sound through movement. So one example is Soundbeat. So for some students who may not have as much verbal ability and may be very limited with their movements, if they can just move their hand a little bit, Soundbeat picks up on that movement and transfers it over to sound. So it allows them to make music. Other examples of adapted instruments, there's one-handed recorders, Chord Maker's Easy Chord Capo for guitar. If you are interested, West Music does have a great supply of adapted instruments. And as mentioned, you can just get creative and make your own if you need to. When we're also talking about AT, we're also combining universal design of learning. This refers to the process of removing barriers to learning for kids with disabilities in ways that also enhance everyone's ability to learn. So we want to think about any of those barriers that might be in our classroom or challenges, and we want to make sure those barriers are not there. By incorporating assistive technology to break down these barriers, our students have the opportunities to find success. Another area is strength-based learning strategies. Some of the students who are receiving special education services are because they need individualized and additional supports that may not be working in the traditional classroom. This could be happening in the neurotypical classroom, inclusion, self-contained, whatever type of classroom setting that they're in. All the supports that are provided for students to find success should be evidence-based and focused on the individual strengths. So again, we're going back to that strength-based model. One, we want to make sure it's evidence-based. We want to make sure it's age appropriate. We want to make sure it's cognitively appropriate. And we want to make sure it's motivating. If we're using supports that our students are not interested in, they're not going to be motivated. We want to find ways, and it's simple. Instead of just using regular letters, you can find letters online that have a cartoon character or maybe even a superhero that our student likes. So for example, a student likes Black Panther, you can find a picture of Black Panther holding a letter A. That could be a motivating visual and strength-based learning strategy to help motivate and engage them and bring them in. We also want to incorporate enhanced human resources. There are many individuals in our students' day-to-day lives that can help support students and their learning needs. These include our teachers, TAs, paras, related service providers, therapists, administrators, peers, and family members. We want to create a positive report of individuals to help support the student. We want to work together as a team because the goal is for whatever skills we're working on, especially as your students are getting older and if they're going to be graduating high school and teachers are working on their transition plans, you really want to think about what skills are we teaching them? What are they generalizing? And how are they going to apply this outside of the music classroom, outside of the special education classroom? How are they going to apply these skills at home? How are they going to apply these skills in the supermarket? So having this enhanced human resources, this positive repertoire of staff and individuals working together, this is how you help build that. Affirmative career aspirations. We really want to be thinking about our careers that our students may have. And we could be doing this as early as elementary. Throughout a student's school experience, a career plan and transition plan is being developed. Typically, this really happens when a student is around 16 years old. That's when we're really starting to think about what's going to happen when they're outside of high school. Are they going to a work study program? Are they going to go to a residential facility? What's going to happen? So this team discusses where the student will be placed based on where they graduate and where they should regularly include student interest again. So as music teachers, we want to be part of this process. We want to be exposing our students to different types of careers they could have in music. Maybe they want to be a composer. Maybe they want to work in a music studio and they want to learn how to program music. We want to introduce through their education program. So these can be through work study programs, day programs. We want to place our students where they will thrive and be most successful. And lastly, we want our students to be provided with as many opportunities as possible. So as mentioned, we could be part of this process. We want to expose them to different careers in the field of education, such careers as singers, instrumentalists, composers, producers. These different pathways can be modified for our special education students with the right amount of supports, and we want to focus where their strengths and interests are. And we also want to focus on environmental modifications. Finding or creating an environment where students' cognitive, emotional, social, or physical strengths have the best chance of being reinforced is what matters most here. So when we're in our classroom, a lot of parts, especially in the music classroom, a lot of parts of the classroom environment can pose a challenge. Many of our students are hypersensitive. Some of our students are hyposensitive. Some things such as sounds, lights, colors, smells, temperature, the actual classroom layout, these can create barriers for our students. So going back to universal design, we want to prevent these challenges from limiting student success and finding ways for them to succeed. So as mentioned, some of our students are hypersensitive. They can become overly stimulated by certain things like sounds. Some of our students are hypo, where they actually need sensory input. So many classrooms, we can incorporate different types of instruments and manipulatives. Because some of our instruments and manipulatives can be easily overwhelming or distracting, we want to make sure everything in the classroom is organized, put away clearly, and we want to make sure that all of our students have the ability to move throughout the space safely, and stations can be incorporated for some of our specific students, which is what we call home base. So just some examples of modifications that we can incorporate is noise canceling headphones. So if you have students who are hypersensitive to sounds, noise canceling headphones kind of blocks out the sounds. Weighted vests or items. So for some students who are hyposensitive and need that sensory input, adding that weight to them would be allowing them to work with that. And that might be something you might want to work with your occupational therapist if you have them in your school. Incorporating sensory items like koosh balls, putty, slime, fidget toys. Some classrooms you might notice have sensory bins where they have multiple types of objects that your students can just grab when they need that sensory input. Even sensory brushes, again, those would be coming from occupational therapists, but they're brushes that staff can use that kind of just give that sensory input. Flexible seating. Not every type of chair is most comfortable for some of our students. They may need to sit in a more specific type of chair. In some classrooms, you may notice that a student might be sitting on a yoga ball. Some students might, if you're sitting on the rug, they might have those little round plastic discs that they're sitting on. That's called flexible seating. Just the basic regular seating doesn't work for all of our students. So incorporating that can just help regulate them. Incorporating visuals in your classroom. Social stories. Sometimes we just need to actually teach through a social story a skill, or even if something's going to change in our schedule. And lastly, incorporating behavioral supports to help our students. So, neurodiversity is recognizing and celebrating that all of our students have different abilities and different strengths. As mentioned, there's no one master brain. Everyone's brain is different. And when we use student success and interest, all of our students can succeed, can thrive, which means all of our students can. So I hope this was useful. I hope you took away with it that all of our students can, and it's up to us to just take a step back and really see that all of our students have strengths and let those strengths shine. Thank you.